Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. As most of you will know, because it's been mentioned in other videos, I travelled out to meet up with the Disa man this morning, and that all went to plan. Met up lunchtime-ish, and some orchids were transferred from one car to the other and brought home. They're sat in that corner. Now I first want to say that people like John, who I've just bought these plants from, make the world go round and make people smile. When you buy a Phalaenopsis, for instance, you look at it and you pay your 20-25 quid and you get what you've paid for. A singular Phalaenopsis in a pot. I paid for what I thought was going to be 6 plants. You wait till you see what I've got. This is the biggest plant purchase I've ever done, by far. Now those of you who have been with the channel an awful long time will have seen me come home with bags of orchids from a show or from a visit to Burnham's, or you would see me unboxing from a purchase online or something like that. So you've seen the sort of things. You won't have seen anything like this. And it's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you start a new genus, which for some on the channel this will be. Some on the channel have already admitted they've never heard of Disas, let alone seen them and seen what they're like. So I'm introducing a genus to some people. Now, some are going to say I've gone a bit mad, but this isn't my first attempt at growing these. I was successfully growing them before, and at a repotting time I lost every single one that I had due to rot. Now that would be unusual, you know, under any circumstances, to have every single plant go like that. So it had to be an individual thing that did it, and I'm confident it was the media and that the mould spores that caused the rot were in the media, because it was wet when I got it, it had been stored wet for some time and had suddenly been taken out and used, and didn't have anywhere near the quantity of perlite, which I now know should be there, like 50-50. Not by weight, by the way, that's by volume. Huh. Otherwise you'd have a cup full of damp peat and a bucket full of perlite, because it weighs nothing. So it's by volume, just to get that straight. Okay, Disas. I'm not going to go into looking after them at the moment. We will cover that in successive videos. This video is about what I came home with. Prepare yourselves for a surprise. I'm just going to move the camera. I've got some containers down here because everything, when you start working with Disas, you know every time you pick a pot up it's going to drip everywhere because they stand in water. Technically people call them bog plants. I don't. They are plants that grow with their feet in water. That water is often moving. It's often running water or on the edge of moving runoff or streams. That technically to me is not a bog. A bog tends to be static, often stagnant water. Far from it, these grow in fresh water. So, what have we got then? I paid for 6 plants. If you pay for 6 plants, you'd expect to get 6, wouldn't you? I'm beginning to think that I ought to call John naughty, because this is not 6 plants. We'll go into it. I'll just move the camera and the tripod round so that I can get in where the plants are. I haven't looked at the names or anything. You'll be looking at these as I do, first time in. So it's going to take me the rest of the afternoon to document them all. Those that have got tags. Right, so we'll swing the camera round so that you can take an initial look at what I loaded up into the car. Ready now? That's what I came home with. Can you see 6 plants there? If you start with the blooms and start counting, you'll get to quite a few more than 6. And then if you look at the number of plants in a pot, it's not one, it's many. So, what a haul. Oh, hang on, I've got my screen round the wrong way. I need to say, I need to see the screen to make sure you can see what I'm looking at. Does that make sense? Yeah, probably. Let's just lower that down a bit. There we go. Right, we'll start in one corner. I'm going to start with this one at the back. You know, if I was going to buy 6 plants, I'd expect 6 pots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 9. So we haven't got 6 plants. Right. I wasn't expecting some long convoluted names. This is Disa 12 Heads White Group. I'll look that up because I'm not sure white group is part of the name. But I will have to get used to naming standards for these plants. Now, just technically speaking, this is obviously a very small Disa, but nonetheless very, very attractive. Species-like, even though it's a hybrid. And just as a sample, I mean, this is one of the smaller pots. You know, I'm supposed to be buying a plant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 in that pot. And looking at the pot full, that looks like the only one that's bloomed, which means the rest of them haven't, which means they may well do next year. That's a good deal on its own, isn't it? So, we will pop these down here. Whoops. Bash the bucket. Why don't you bash the tripod? So that's the first one. Moving swiftly on. It's going to take a while to get through these. Keep grinding. Right, so a pot full. And I mean a pot full. I'm not even going to attempt to count how many plants are in there. Now, with these larger pots, this size pot, John said that these will need repotting towards the end of the year, and he would split them into 4 groups of plants to be individually potted up. So I've bought one, and I'm going to get 4 potfuls out of it. Not 4 plants, 4 potfuls. Anybody want some Disas? But we'll have a look at a bloom on this one. This is, I will be putting pop-ups for the names because these are first ones. Now this one, unless it's got the wrong tag in it, I've already got, because it says it's Suzette James. Now that's one I've already got, but this is a different clone number. You know the 2 that I showed you that now look really lonely down there, the peachy coloured one that you've seen before, that was Suzette James, but I believe, let me just have a quick look. Yes, so that peachy one was clone 14. This is clone 24. So even with the same name, we can have a fair old bit of variety. So let's have a closer look at this bloom then. See if we can hold it still. Nice reasonable sized bloom. Single blooming on this at the moment. So single flower per spike. Some are like that, some are multifloral. Do you want to try and count how many plants are in that pot? Because I'm not going to do it. But in this corner alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 just in that bit. Supposed to be buying 1. So that's that one. Next, another big pot. Now some of these blooms are going over. I'm not at all unhappy about that. At the end of the day, some Disas bloom earlier in the year, some bloom later in the year. If you get a nice mix, you can have some in bloom for quite a long period throughout the year, throughout the growing season. So this is This is one I specifically asked for because I looked up Dave Parkinson plants to have a look at his list with, he hasn't got pictures of all of them, but he does have descriptions of size, whether they're multifloral and colours. So this is Cuensis Ann. This was one of the ones I said I might like. Now these blooms are going over, fair enough, but again, you know, I've got quite a few in this pot. So when we come to split that up, this one might not get split into many. It might get split into one with just a couple of odd ones that I can join together. Whoops, I'm dripping on my thing. So bearing in mind these are going over, we've got a nice sort of pale yellowy orange here and multifloral. So that's that one. I asked about the standing in water bit, the fact that he stands them in 2 inches of water. You'll see a bit of an experiment in here in a minute somewhere when I get to it. He's tried growing them in various things, and the things don't seem to matter as much as the standing in water bit. Needs to be fresh water, not left there to go stale or anything. That's the important bit. And he stands them in 2 inches of water, which is like half the depth of the pot in most cases. I've got mine in small trays. I will do another video on how I'm going to set these up, because that's not how they're going to stay. Right, next one. Little pot. Small plants. This is Disa 12 heads, again, yellow group. Now this is a tiny little Disa. There's only one in this pot in bloom, even though there are quite a few plants. And I doubt if I'll be able to focus on this hand. With me holding the blooms, they'll wobble. But tiny little, very pale yellow, I would say of botanical interest type bloom. Nonetheless, still attractive. That's that one. So that's 4 pots. We're not even halfway across the tray yet. Naughty John. Right, another small pot. This is Disa Troon. Again, reasonable pot full. This looks like it was last year. This was a big pot and it was split into 4, as John suggests, and this is one of those 4. That's what it looks like to me. Nice delicate pink colour, multifloral. There's 5 blooms on that spike. So, you know, a pot full of 3 or 4 spikes of this is going to put on quite a show. So that's that one. Oh. Now we're up to another big pot. Oof. Now this is a pot full. Disa Pennants. Again, I was supposed to be paying for 1 plant. That will split into 4. I will have 4 potfuls of this for next year, and some of each of those potfuls will produce spikes. They might not all, but some of them will. So what have we got here then? A sort of peachy orange, medium-sized bloom, looks like single bloom per spike. Well, that's what these are. So another huge potful. Right, so we're not going to get any more in there. Into the other container now. Another big pot. Right, what have we got then? This is Disa Russet Beauty, and that's what it is. So a more red colour than orange, lovely patterning in the lip, multifloral again, up 3 on that spike, 2 on here and 2 singles. So let's see if I can get a closer look at these blooms. I suppose one thing I ought to try and show you is, as I'm picking these pots up, half the roots are hanging out the pot. These pots stand in water. These roots are heading for the water. Seems to be what they like. Well, we've always said when you're growing orchids, give them what they like, you'll get good orchids. So that's that one. Whew, getting to the end now. Another small one. This is Pride of Constantia. Not many in this pot. This might not be a vigorous grower, but what it does have is, you haven't seen this yet. If you look on this pot full, you've got one that looked like it was blooming size, but it hasn't bloomed. The one next to it has. But down in the pot are all the young growths coming up. Yeah? I probably won't repot that one. I'll let those new growths grow on. Might have to have a chat about that one. Now this one's got some mould on the bloom, given the humidity and everything that they're kept in. That's not at all surprising, but lovely delicate yellow, nice patterning, and some deeper yellow on the end of the petals or sepals, whichever they are. I'll have to look up the parts for these, because these are 3-part orchids, if you see what I mean. So you've got, you know, the hood at the top, and then you've got 2 somethings. Now those are probably fused, something or others. That could be the sepals, 4 of them fused together as a pair. I'll have to find out. I'm just guessing at the moment. So that's that one. Lots of new growths coming up in that pot, lots. Right, I'll get the last of the little ones out then, and then we've got the 2 big ones left. Now this is Disa Orchids. You'll have to read that and pronounce it how you see fit. Now, again, multifloral. 2, 4, 6, 7 blooms on this spike. Not too many plants, but again, one probably blooming size next year, definitely. One that has bloomed, and some to grow on. And what colours are we looking at here? I'd say a peachy coloured hood and an orangey peach coloured whatever those lower pieces are called. We'll find out. It's all a bit new at the moment. So, you know, when I've grown some on and you get a pot with 2 or 3 spikes in with that number of blooms per spike, these can be showstoppers. They are a bit of a nuisance from my point of view, because the shows that I can put it in are March and September, and March is too early, and September they're probably all have gone over. Anyway, that's that one. That's the last of the small pots. I've got a couple of biggies left to go. Never had to do this many plants in one go before. Now this is Betty Arnold, and it's clone 15. Now obviously with multiple clones with the same name, the clone ID is quite important, because it differentiates in some cases what will be quite different blooms. Now these are what I would call robust plants. Yeah, and that is a good potful. That will split into 4. 3 of the plants have already bloomed, they won't bloom again, they'll die back. And then you look at what's left, that will be 4 potfuls to grow on for next year, and a fair few of those will bloom. Can be multifloral. We've got a bud here, not open yet, so you probably would call this a later bloomer if it's still yet to open. But these are large and a good strong colour, so very pleased with that. And obviously robust grower, grows into quite strong plants. And one more, and the last. This is the experiment. This pot has no media. It has some moss, but basically this was a division that was just plonked in a pot and no media added. Her roots are lousy, aren't they? Roots, no media, heading for water and doing fine, nice robust plants and in bloom. So it seems to be that what they grow in is less important than the fact they're standing in the water's clean and fresh. And this is Uniflora pink group. Uniflora is one of those that comes in quite a few different colours and shades of colours. The two spikes on here are not multifloral. That's a snail. You're not going back in. Well, actually no, it's not. Some sort of granule. Anyway, again, nice colour, nice shape, nice patterning. Good stuff. Right, so we now have, along with the two I've already got, a lot of Disas, a lot of Disas. And we're going to have a setup for them. Now, unlike some people suggested back at Burnham's, these come from an area that's quite high up. This is what you call clean air. So the light level is quite intense, even when it's not in the sun. These like bright light. So the two that I've got on the floor are in insufficient light for a permanent position. So my idea of using the floor for some of these is not going to be good enough. They need to get up. These need to be top shelf plants. I don't have any spare top shelf space at the moment. So I think we may be rearranging the grow room. I've got enough of these now to warrant special attention, as I'll call it. You know, as people have seen before on the channel, I often go for a new genus. I used to do at least one a year to try it out, see how they do. We've expanded the Coelogenes last year and again on into this year. God, it's flipping hot in here. I'm starting to leak. This is not on. It was heading up towards 32 in here when I got back because the door hadn't been opened since I left. The sun's gone in now. With that heat out there and the sun's gone in, it means we've got clouds. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a thunderstorm. Let's have a look. No, not yet. It's getting a bit like, you know, the clouds are getting a bit of some substance to them and they're starting to get a darker colour. We could get, I mean, we had a massive downpour here this morning. Lasted about 3/4 of an hour. And it was more than enough rain for me not to have to water anything in the garden, including the bonsai. The puddles on the tarmac on the drive out the front were 1/2 inch deep. That's a lot of water in that amount of time. It was quite torrential. And it was straight down rain, none of this horizontal nonsense. It was straight down rain. God, couldn't hear yourself think, so noisy on the roof. Anyway, the fan's off. I need to get that back on, get this airflow going again. Since I opened the door to come out and film to try and get it a bit cooler in here, that heat's now gone in the lounge, so I'm going to have to go and sit in there and dribble as well, because it'll be warm in there now. And the humidity's dropped down below 70. That will go back up to 85 with my little humidifier as soon as the door's shut. Not much point in putting it on before the door's shut. So we need positioning and a setup for the Disas. This involves some airflow, not a force 8 gale, but some airflow around them. That might mean I'm going to have to get out the little computer fans that I used to use, if I can find them. They used to run off a phone charger, if I remember rightly. Well, I've got a socket, I can sort out power, I've got cabling, I can run those around, but these Disas need a highlight shelf, which means they need to be up the door end. Well, there's a shelf there that's full. There's my little display section over there, which is a low shelf. So that's up the bright end, but not up near the roof where the brightest diffused sun comes in, because obviously the higher up in here you go, the warmer it gets, irrespective of the fan. And then I've got these two little black tables here which have stuff on for display purposes. Something is going to have to give. Yeah, something is going to have to give. And it might be that we get a new shelf in along there. So in the long, well, now let's get the old camera down and you can see what the hell I'm talking about. There's be some people watching this that have never seen the grow room. So just twist this round and get it on my hand. A bit of wobbling. Get my screen round. So we're talking about this end. Yeah, I've got to be able to get in and out the door, which means that corner is quite small. Whatever shelf I have, the top part of it would be a small square. That's nowhere near enough space. Bearing in mind some of these pots will become 4. They won't be 4 big ones like this, but you know, where there was 1 there will be 4, so you know, where there was 4 or 5 big pots here, we're looking at heading up towards 20 possibly. So we need some space. What do we have then? An alternative. Alternative is we get rid of these 2 tables and find somewhere else to put these plants. You know, if the worst comes to the worst, the geraniums will have to go outside, or at least till the winter time. And we have to bear in mind that, you know, come September into October, the cymbidiums have got to come back in. Where I thought I had lots of space, I'm not so sure now. So something's got to give. And it may be that my watering table has to be lifted out somewhere, possibly even outside, and just brought back in for watering. We'll have to see. The Disas don't need watering. All they need is the water in their trays changed to be kept fresh. That does mean I'm probably going to get through some more RO water. So what we might have to have is quite a shelf along there, and then this one can turn round that way, so this can turn round and stick out a bit because I can still get at the plants. You might have to do the same with that. It needs thinking about. In the meantime, the plants that I've got, I will probably just about be able to get on that little table. They will all be very squashed up, but yeah. I mean, these 2 are on the floor at the moment. As I said, you know, I was under the impression that you know, they need an amount of shade and not the brightest light. But I think we might have to change our mind. See, now at the moment the Coleogenes are on the top shelf. They're in a bright position. So maybe we change round. Maybe we take the Odontoglossums down onto the floor, bring the Coleogenes down onto there, and release that top shelf. That gets them up near the roof. But if you, the camera will adjust, but if I just hold the camera there, you should be able to see the difference in the light under that panel compared with that panel. This panel is more shaded than that one, and the one on the end, the little triangles, and this one is much brighter again. The brightest end of the grow room is up this end. So some thinking to do. Suggestions on a postcard? Those that are physically possible. No getting smart. I do the jokes here. Anyway, so there we go. A few additions to the collection. I've never bought in that many plants in one go. And anybody thinking going down this line, apparently there are Disas for sale on eBay. They come up now and again. They are often single plants, often a potful purchased from this guy and split up into individual plants as a money-making exercise. John said those individual plants do not do well. They like to be in a group with minimal root disturbance, and splitting them down at that level, they will take a very long time to get going, if at all. So go steady if you're thinking of going down that road. Oh, and by the way, a bit of sad news came out from John as well. Dave Parkinson, the nursery, the Disa specialist, has stopped trading from some time ago. So the telephone number and everything is still there on the website, but if you use it, so if you do as suggested and send a letter or do a telephone call, you will get Dave Parkinson's wife telling you that they are no longer trading and they no longer supply Disas, so that has stopped. That was the specialist nursery. There is no replacement. Yeah, so yeah, these are difficult to get hold of, and not many people attempt to grow them in private collections. And that's how it is. So if we want to keep these going and keep the supply going, then somebody's got to take up the baton. I'll give it my best. See you next time. Thanks for now. Bye for now. Thanks for more coffee. See you again.